What do you think is the gift that life designed into you?
This divorce being the catalyst to launching me into my life, I was thinking about, you talked about gifts, but what gifts have been given to me by my four parents? And from my mom, it was love. She taught me how to love. And my dad taught me how to talk to anybody. And my stepdad, certainly resilience and hard work. He would say, paddle like your life depends on it. And that's always in my head. One of my gifts is I'm a risk taker, I'm an explorer, I'm very, very curious. I'm living in a tent with a broken arm and no money to pay for the medical bills or anything like that. Most people afterwards would have said, never take a risk like that again. I was like, oh, I can't wait to take my next risk. I didn't want to be a father. And I thought to myself, this woman is going to be an incredible mother. I was not convinced I was going to be a father until the baby was born. And I see that baby come, and by far the greatest moment of my life until my second child came. And then I was like, oh, my family is complete.
When you're 120 and you're on your deathbed, what do you want your two daughters to tell you? He is a six-time entrepreneur, global thinker, and host of the 12 Geniuses podcast, where he explores the trends shaping our future to help leaders create meaningful change. Don MacPherson. Hi, I'm Topaz Adidas. I'm the founder of the Emmy Award-winning series, The And. The And has been an incredible journey for the last 12 years. We've brought in over 1,250 pairs to have incredible conversations. And I've learned a lot. Through this work, I've had the privilege of witnessing the bold, the beautiful, and the heart-wrenching. The conversations that reveal us. I've watched, I've listened, I've learned, and now I'm ready to share. David S. Viscott has a great quote that always inspires me. The purpose of life is to find your gift. The work of life is to develop your gift. And the meaning of life is to give it away. And what I've seen from my 48 years on this planet, through incredible experiences, is that life shapes us. Things happen to us and we interpret those things, and that shapes us into offerings we can offer others. So the expedition that I'm embarking upon, that I'm inviting you to join, is a journey of conversations. I'm going to speak to people that I find incredible. I'm going to be asking them questions that reveal their life's journey. What are the hidden gifts and challenges and offerings that they have? And on this journey, we will uncover the message the universe has written into your life, for yourself and for others. Are you listening to what your life is telling you? I don't know where we'll go. I'm just going to be very transparent about it. And that's why I welcome you to this journey that we're calling Getting Under the Skin, or GUTS for short. Thank you. And let's see where we go. Hey, beautiful people. Topaz Adidas here again with another episode of Getting Under the Skin. Today we have Don MacPherson joining us, and I'm super excited to have him. Let me tell you about Don MacPherson. Don MacPherson is a powerhouse of purpose-driven entrepreneurship. Over the past 25 years, he has founded multiple companies rooted in understanding and improving organizational health, leadership, and human connection. His first company, Modern Survey, which focused on employee and customer relationships, was acquired by Aon Hewitt in 2016. Since then, he's continued to shape the future of work and well-being through his podcast and platform, 12 Geniuses, which he dives deep into complex issues like AI, aging, climate, and societal shifts. Beyond business, Don's commitment to mentorship is just as impressive. He's traveled to 75 countries and spent over 3 decades guiding young people through initiatives like Think to Perform Research Institute and Inner City Ducks. Whether it's corporate culture or community care, Don shows up fully and completely. Don's latest company, Home and Home, helps seniors age in place by making homes safer and more functional. I met Don when I was doing the book tour for 12 Questions for Love and doing all the podcasts. I got invited on to his podcast, 12 Genius for Love, and it was a great conversation. And then after we were done, I asked him some questions, and I realized, because we talked about fatherhood, and he sent me an email about these little habits he does with his daughters, and I just found this guy to be an inquisitive, kind, giving, committed. And I want to know more about him. And he's passionate. This is somebody who travels, somebody who moves. This is somebody who, explores the world. Also, he had children later in life, much like me. And I wanted to know what shaped him. Where did he come from? I want to bring him because I was just impressed by his being, the way he thought, his openness, his kindness, and his gratitude. And so, without further ado, honor and pleasure, I bring you this episode of Getting Under the Skin with Don MacPherson. Don, thanks for doing this. Thanks
My
for coming
pleasure.
on.
Thanks for having me. Yes, I hope that I can. I hope that I can hold up my end of the bargain.
Oh, I'm not even worried about that. I'm so excited. I've been very excited about this convo. So just to give a little scope of the whole convo, I know I mentioned yesterday the email, but maybe another way of looking at it is, you read Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut?
Years ago, yes.
There's a part where he talks about Johnny Pilgrim, who's like the main character. He talks about time being like a mountain range. And that it's really, you look at it and you think that you're walking the ridge one step at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 month at a time, whatnot. But actually the ridge is always there. The mountain line is always there. And if you go macro, it's like time is all at once. And we're just experiencing it one step at a time, walking the ridge, but actually it's all at once. So I kind of want to invite you and us to have a conversation. So it's back and forth. And I'm really excited about that because there's a lot of overlap. I think definitely in the last, the last 5 years, I think we can talk about that. But I want to have a conversation around looking at the macro of your life. If we look at that ridge line of time and what you've gone through, I believe that there's indications along the path that speak of something larger. Almost like fractals, fractals where you can like zoom out 6 times and it kind of repeats, the pattern repeats. So arguably we could look at one moment in your life and that could actually be the theme for the whole life. Or like in a really good, I used to make films and all that, like in a really good film, every scene is the whole story. Mm-hmm. Like the whole theme and the thematic of the whole hero's journey of that film is in every scene. So you could actually just, like for me, if you show me one frame from any film I've seen, one frame, 85% of the time I can tell you what that film is. And, and I've tested it. And the reason is because in every frame is the whole story. That's my opinion. So similar to our life. And so I kind of want to embark on that with you because I think the value for our audience, for anyone listening, is wisdom. Like I think, like they can derive experience and knowledge and understand that you've garnered through your experiences with life and through life, then they can take that on instead of having to live it themselves, but carry that wisdom into their own life.
Well, I hope this is all true. I hope that what I have to share is meaningful for people. It's been meaningful for me. So just between getting that email from you yesterday and this morning's walk with the dog in the woods along the lake, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what got me here, what got me to April 22nd. And hopefully it's valuable.
What, we want to start there? What got you here?
I spent some time thinking about that. I live on Penn. That's the name of my street. And when I was 3 years old, I lived on Penn in a different part of town. So we have bookends. There's a bookend here. I lived on Penn Avenue, maybe 3 or 4 miles from where I am right now. But the last 53 years has taken me around the world and introduced me to so many different people. When I was 3 years old, my parents got divorced. And I moved from Minneapolis. So at the time, not a huge city, but it's a city that people know, to a small town, an Iron Range town, so a mining community. Going from a big city with an airport to a mining community with 2,300 people. So it was the divorce that really has shaped my life.
Who did you go with? Your mom or your dad?
My mom. My dad stayed in Minneapolis, and my mom went back to her hometown where she grew up. And people in Minnesota would know Ely It's kind of it's a tourism town where people go to the Boundary Waters canoe area. This is the launching point to this beautiful, expansive nature area. And there's only a couple thousand people there, but it's a mining community. So my grandfather mined, my stepdad's father, my other grandfather mined. I actually mined for 2 summers during college. And
Mm-hmm.
it was that, I think that divorce and then their subsequent marriages to my other parents. I have 4 parents. And as I was thinking about this divorce being the catalyst to launching me into my life, I was thinking about, you talked about gifts and what gifts I have, but what gifts have been given to me by my 4 parents. And from
Uh-huh.
my mom, it was love. She taught me how to love. And my dad taught me how to talk to anybody. We would go on trips and he would be in North Dakota, or we might be in Wisconsin or anywhere in the region. And he would know somebody and he would just talk to them and find a way to connect with them just like that. And my stepdad, certainly resilience and hard work. So over a career of 40 some years, he missed half a day of work.
Wow.
And I said, well, what happened that day? And he said, I was throwing up in my hard hat at lunchtime and I realized it was time to go home.
So he did
Now,
half a day. He did
he
half a
did half
day.
a day, yeah. Now, my work ethic is nothing like his, but in terms of resilience and hard work and trying new things, I certainly got it from him. And then my dad's wife, who I just spent the weekend with, she has a way of detaching and managing a crisis like nobody else I know. And so those things, and what I've always tried to do from a leadership perspective is look for people I admire and take little bits and pieces about
Mm-hmm.
what I like from them and make them my own. And
Yeah.
so, my 4 parents have helped me become who I am by sharing their gifts or me stealing their gifts from them.
So that's the second similarity that you and I have. One is the back pain or the hip pain, and the other one is years of that, and the other one is now I realize 3 years old, divorced parents. I was 3 or 4.
Oh, you went
So
through that too.
yeah. So just out of curiosity, were you the oldest child, only child, youngest
No,
child?
no. And that's a great question. I wanted to ask you that question too. I am the middle child. So what happened is my older sister is almost 3 years older than I am. So she would have been about 6 when all of this went down. And then I was born. And then I had a younger sister who passed away at 11 months, just short of 11 months. And that was the reason for the divorce.
It just
I'm
yeah.
convinced. I never asked my parents, but
Sure.
you either get
Wow.
closer or you
Don't.
split apart. And for my parents, they split apart.
So you were 3 and your sister was 9? She's 6
No,
years
she
older?
was 6.
She was 6, okay.
She was 6. Yes, there's 3
What
years between us, and she has memories of this. I have no memory of this, and I'm grateful for that. Because she carries a little bit of baggage, a little bit of
Sure.
insecurity. Life can be disrupted at any time. I skated through that. That was nothing for me. What about you? Are you the oldest?
I was the oldest, yeah. My brother's 15 months younger than I. So, I definitely that's an informative part of my life. The first kind of rupture, uh, you know, eh, where you kind of wake up from being a child to like, wait, I got to survive here. The system is faltering. There's gods who are warring. How do I stop the war and how do I survive it? Those are my earliest memories for sure. I mean, what did you learn from your parents' marriage and divorce? And then what did you learn from their second marriages? So, for instance, for me, I learned from my parents' divorce I got the idea that I still carry now as a kind of an architecture of relationships, which I don't know is true or not. But what I've learned from their marriage and divorce was that maybe we find our exact complement so that our souls can evolve. So, for example, my father has a really hard time with intimacy. If someone really tells him they love him and caress him and really engage him with love, he has a really hard time with that. And my mom has a really hard time doing that, being intimate, being loving, being. So in some ways, they found the perfect complement.
Hmm.
My mom found someone who has a really hard time accepting love and intimacy, which she can't really give. And so my mom was like, they kind of found the perfect complement, you know? They found someone who was the risk and the fear of what the discomfort they both was equitable to both. So it wasn't like my dad was really comfortable with being loved and therefore my mom was really hard for her. So for her it was a really uncomfortable thing, but for him it was comfort. No, it was equally uncomfortable for both. And so their marriage in some sense offered them comfort, right? So they weren't challenged, or if they choose to take it, to both step into their discomfort equally, do something that's equally fearful to both. So my mom really expressing love and doing that, and my dad in receiving it for their souls to evolve. And that was the offering, and they didn't take it, and it crumbled. I mean, that's one interpretation. So what have you kind of derived about love or relationships from your parents' divorce? And then, what did you learn from their remarriages? Because that's really interesting.
I'll say two things about my parents' marriage. One is, and I was just telling my girls this past weekend, there are kids who their parents are divorced or their parents are not living together. And we were chatting about that, and I was just letting them know that that's very, very painful for the child. So let's not make light of that. Let's have some compassion for those kids because it's difficult shuttling between moms and dads, or maybe dad's not even in the picture. And I was expressing to them that for years after the divorce, I hoped that my parents would get back together, even though they were in marriages. It was just this naive kid thinking, oh, well, maybe they'll get back together. And now I realize, oh, thank goodness they didn't, because it's better
Right.
for all of us that they
Right.
didn't get back together. And I just wanted them to understand that it can be years. These things can shape who we are and cause a great amount of confusion. But one of the great things, and one of the things that I admire most about my mom and dad, is that they never said one bad word to each other.
Wow.
Oh, about each other. Sorry.
About each other.
They never said one bad word about each other in all of the years. And there were some bad words they could have said, but they never did. And I realized, oh my goodness, they put the kids first. And so that's informative to me. Oh, okay, you have to put your children first. If you're going to be a parent, you have to put your children first. But also when I'm counseling friends who are going through a divorce, like, okay, I realize you're hurt, but you have to put your children first. And that's very difficult for them. But I have seen where they have, and I've seen where that's made a difference, just kind of counseling them through their pain and not, volleying it back to their partner or using their child or children as pawns in their game. That can't work. So I'm really grateful for that lesson that they taught me.
And what do you learn from the remarriages? From the part, it sounds like they got remarried both pretty quickly.
Yeah, they did very quickly. I think that just before my 4th birthday. So
Wow.
my mom got married June 27th, just before 3 months before my 4th birthday, and my dad got married August 11th. So like weeks between. And
wow,
a lot of it was out of necessity. So my mom was, I think my stepdad told me she moved 10 times or 11 times in 10 years or something like that. It was just, she was just bouncing around after high school, and it was difficult for her. So he certainly gave her some stability. And that wasn't a great marriage for many years. He walked in with 2 kids who he treated like his own. I give him a lot of respect. I've learned so much from him. He's one of my heroes, and I tell him. And he was like, why? There's so many other people who could be your hero. I'm like, well, I have many heroes, but you're one of them. And he doesn't understand it, but I don't care. I let him know that. And my mom certainly made the marriage work, through some of his flaws. He had some anger issues, and patience issues, and you're a father, it's
Sure.
not easy all the time.
No.
Um, but she made it work. She was patient with him, and she held that together. And then with my dad's marriage, I mean, it was certainly his wife who has made that thing work too. Just the level of care that she provides him. Even now, he's 81. He just turned 81 last week. We don't know how much longer he has. So
Yeah.
she's taking care of all the time. And I would say that is really inspiring to me. Just she's putting her life on hold to give him comfort and to make his last days, whatever they can be. I wouldn't say joyful, but at least tolerable. And he got to see his grandchildren this weekend, which is wonderful. And so we're trying to make those types of experiences possible for him.
Copy that. What do you think they found in their new partners that they didn't have with each other? And how did that reflect on you, like in terms of choosing your partnership as you grew up? In the relationship that you're in now, you've basically seen 3 marriages up close.
Two, because I didn't see my mom and dad.
Oh, you. Oh, right. But you were
I was really too young to truly understand. I think
interesting.
their marriages, particularly my mom's, because I was closest, I spent the most time there. It was about sacrificing for the greater good. They sacrificed everything. My stepdad is, I mentioned, probably the hardest worker I'll ever know. And I'm just thinking about taking on 2 children and then eventually having a child of his own, 3 children. We were very, very humble. I didn't know that we were poor until I returned to Minneapolis as an adult. Like I didn't know. I just thought
Mhm.
this was like what life is
Normal,
like,
right?
just normal. So extraordinarily humble means, and they're just going to sacrifice whatever is necessary in order for their children to have a chance to succeed.
So when you say greater good, you mean for the kids. That's what you mean.
Absolutely.
Which is the same advice you're giving to your friends who are going through divorce, which is they need to sacrifice for the kids.
Absolutely. And we do too. You and I are very blessed
Yeah.
to be parents when we are. Wealth and access and all of the things, opportunities that we have available to us, we have to put some of those aside. Ryan Holiday wrote a book called The Daily Dad, and I read that every day, and I've read it every day for the past 3 years. And there's one entry in it that is work, family, or scene. Choose two. So you can be really good at your job, really good at your family, or on the scene, but you can't be all three. And I was like, oh, that is so true.
What does on the scene mean?
On the
Like
scene is
socializing?
going to restaurants, bars, parties, having
Socializing. Yeah.
this social life.
Hmm.
Work, party, scene. I'm sorry, work, family, scene. And I'm good at 1.5. I can be great at 2. And my family always comes first. And then some of the things that I am doing professionally, then that gets whatever space that I'm not providing for the family. So I learned that from my parents. And there was one point during my childhood where my stepdad was laid off from the mine for 4 years and 10 months during my teenage years. 4
Wow.
years, 10 months. I think he got hired back around the time that I was a senior in high school.
So 3 kids and no work. 4
Yes.
years and 10 months. How did the family manage?
Well, again, this goes back to his, if we were paddling in a storm, so we would often go on lakes and on camping trips and things like that. If we were paddling in a storm, he would say, paddle like your life depends on it. And that's always in my head. Do this like your life depends on it. Fight like your life depends on it. Play like your life depends on it. And he worked like his life depended on it. So at one point, he went to North Dakota to work on a farm. And he was just a farmhand for that summer or for that season. And then he drove, well, he moved to Minneapolis, so 4 hours away from where we were living, and got his barber's license and then cut hair, and would drive an hour and 15 minutes one way to work in a barbershop. So he's not making a ton of money in a barbershop in Duluth, Minnesota. And then he would drive home. And then if we had a game, he'd drive to the game and watch us. And, he just, that sort of mentality is quite amazing. And then my mom behind the scenes is making sure that the, home is safe and is comfortable and there's meals ready. And so that's where she showed her love is by providing for our family. And
so resilience, stepdad, bonus dad,
yes.
Love, mom,
Yes.
Code switching, dad, ability to speak to anybody, endear, code switching, you call it endearing or form of empathy, communicative empathy, and calmness in the face of challenges. What?
Yes.
Strength
So
your bonus
the ability to manage crisis, without a doubt, and detach, and not detach in a negative way, but I'm going to remove myself from this situation so we can get through it. And I learned that from her. It's not innate, but I have to remind myself of how she handles those situations. So, for example, when my grandma passed away, my dad's mom, it was a very emotional time, and she just kind of shepherded us through.
How old were you?
20s. In my 20s, my dad was a wreck, very emotional. His brother, my uncle, was a wreck. They were at each other's head, at each other's throats, and she's just behind the scenes, kind of managing it, deflecting. And I know you're involved in jiu-jitsu and self-defense. You don't have to use a lot of effort and energy to kind of redirect the masters, and she's just a master at it. Like, just a little deflection here. Okay, maybe you need to go in this room for a minute. Can you get this for me? That's how she handles things. It's amazing.
Wow. That was like the basis of the sandbox, of the nutrients of the garden. And then where? I mean, you were a competitor. Sports was a big part of your life, no?
Yes.
You went to play basketball in Germany, right?
I did.
I mean, what continued to build on the sediments of divorced parents at 3 and new families? What built on top of that to get you to April 22nd?
I think there's a sense of impermanence, right? And certainly learned that from my dad. So a great deal of insecurity. And I'll just give you an example. When my father was born, his dad had already passed. So when he was in the womb, my grandfather passed away from, I think, cancer. So he never knew him. And my grandmother didn't remarry until he was out of the home. And then my father becomes a father. At 25, he has 3 children, and one of them passes away. So this sense of impermanence, right? And I think I kind of got a sense for impermanence. And so as a result, I didn't make any commitments. I never made commitments.
So let me play that back, because what I got, one thing was that I did get, another thing I got from my parents' divorce was the question I applied to every relationship, intimate, romantic, any business, anything, was, how's this going to end? How's this going to end? This is going to end bad. Nothing is good and nothing's going to continue good. Something's going to shit's going to hit the fan somehow. And how am I going to battle this person when that happens? So every engagement was always, this is great for now, but what are the ways it could end, and how can I protect myself from the pain of the ending?
I wish I had that kind of foresight, because I never thought about the end game. No, I just knew that this is not going to work
that's
out.
What I feel when I hear impermanence. That's what I hear. I hear like, this is not forever.
it's not forever, but I never thought about how it's going to end or the pain or the strife that it's going to cause. It
Okay.
was just like, well, this is kind of nice for now, and
Right.
I'll ride it out. But I never thought about the end game.
Well, I'd
And
rather not have thought about the end game because that affected the present
yeah,
game.
the present game is a lot more fun when you're not thinking about the end game, especially when you have this idea of impermanence. It's kind of remarkable how that works. Um, but yeah, so the other thing that I think is interesting and I think contributes to how I got to where I am now is growing up in a mining community. I don't think we truly valued our lives.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is all we knew is people who worked and lived for the day. Nobody was really truly building for a future, a bright future, at least nobody I knew. And so we're talking the 1970s and the 1980s when there was huge economic disruptions where I grew up. Like I said, the mine closed for nearly 5 years. And so I had this sense that I probably will not achieve greatness.
And when you were in high school, you felt this way when you were a kid.
When I was a kid and in high school, yes. Because I didn't know. I didn't know what the world had to offer. I had no clue. And think about, listeners who grew up with just the internet. I didn't grow up with the internet, and we had maybe 2 or 3 channels of television, and there was no cable television when I was a boy. So I just had no sense for what the possibilities of the world might have to offer. And as a result, I thought, well, my life's not worth too much. And then it wasn't until I went to college and I started to meet other people who had different backgrounds and grew up differently than I did. I was like, oh, you can do that? You can
Uh-huh.
start a business, you can travel, you can go to school out of state. The fact that I went to college is pretty remarkable, and I give my parents a great deal of credit. They didn't have a college fund set up for me, but they planted it in my mind, you are going to college. Didn't know what that meant. Didn't know the doors that would open for me. Didn't know how fundamentally that would change my life. And so that's one of the things is just not devaluing, because we didn't dismiss life, but we just didn't know the idea of recognizing our potential. There were no conversations about that.
Wow. So that's interesting because now, just you're in because my research, you're saying the next 25 years of your life, you want to be really focused on helping people achieve their maximum potential, even though maximum potential is never fully achieved, but to get as close as possible. And so you're what, 50 something now, early 50s. You think about doing that for the next 25 years of your life, but the first 20 of your life, there was not even an idea.
Didn't know it was possible. Didn't know what potential was. Didn't know, how much potential we had in the classroom. Brilliant kids, smart kids, hardworking kids. Some of them stayed in the mining community. Some have gone on and done amazing things, and maybe their parents kind of had a better idea of what was possible, what the world would allow for them.
When was the first moment you realized you could go off track? And what I mean by that is, do you remember when you were a kid, if you ever went to like Disneyland or some kind of amusement park and you rode the cars and you're like thinking you're driving, but
Yeah.
then you realize I can turn left as much as I want, but ultimately there's a train track because this car is on a track.
Yes.
So actually me going left and right doesn't really matter. I'm veering a little bit, but this thing's it's on a track. And when did you finally realize, wait, I'm off the track? I can literally go left and I can go as far left for as long as I want. And then I can turn around and go right. When did you, like, for some people, it ends after college or after high school, where they're like, okay, I've done that. I got the BA, I got the degree or whatnot. Like, I'm out. I'm going to go into the real world. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go and do something crazy or that's not scripted or that's not on track? When did you first realize you could break track, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait, there's such thing as potential, or there's such thing as possibility?
Yeah, the summer of 1990.
Okay,
Oh
tell me,
yeah,
tell me,
yep.
tell
So
me.
there was this guy who moved into my dorm, and he's Sri Lankan,
And you're a freshman, sophomore. What are you?
junior.
Junior. Okay.
That was my junior year, and I meet this guy. I can barely understand what he's saying. I never met anybody like him before. He's got a thick accent, but it's a little bit performative. He loved, to use his accent, and he was exotic to me. And I meet this guy, and he's just got personality, so much personality. And I'm learning. He's a couple years older than I am. He was studying at a different university, and he came to my university for like a quarter or 2 quarters. So we just met fleetingly. But I was like, wow, this guy is something else. And he was telling me about his life. Oh, I lived in London, and I sailed over here on a ship. And then I was down in the Southeast in the United States. And I came up here, and I went to school. And we're going to Alaska. I'm taking people up to Alaska, and we're going to work on fishing boats. I'm thinking, what? He's like, yeah, do you want to come? I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, you'll make $7 an hour. You'll make $8 an hour, $10 an hour. I don't know. Do you want to come up there? And I was like, yeah. And I had spent the previous 2 summers working in a mine. So working on a fishing boat seemed like, okay, well, I can do it. I'm okay doing hard work. And adventure. So driving from St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is near Minneapolis, to Seattle, and then up the Alcan Highway to Seward, Alaska. It's like 5,000 miles. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And this guy led 20 of us in 4 or 5 different cars up there. We caravanned up there.
Wow.
Seeing moose, elk. At that
Wow.
time, the highway was dirt. It was gravel. We're going up there. It's June. It's light all of the time. There are moose in the middle of the road. I remember cow moose standing in the road with her 2 calves on both sides, and she's just looking at us. And it's 4 a.m, and we're driving up there. And she's like, you can go around, but I'm not moving. We went around, and it was just like this insane trip. And I lived in a tent, and it was the summer after the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and there were no jobs. So we're up there. There's no jobs. There's no work. And I had $200 on that trip. I put $200 in my pocket to pay for gas, to pay for food. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I can get a job. I'll find a job. $200 is no big deal. And after 3 weeks, I didn't find any work, and I would play basketball as much as I could every day. And one day because you play basketball at the gym, then you can shower there so you can get clean. One day I was playing basketball, I broke my arm. Oh. And I'm living in a tent with a broken arm and no money to pay for the medical bills or anything like that. And I had a car. It was a $900 car. And I gave the keys to my buddy, and I said, try to sell it. I called home, and I said, I broke my arm. Can you fly me home? And my mom sent $500, and I flew one way back. And I was like, oh, wow, that was a disaster. And, my parents, I spend so much social capital, I took this big risk, and my parents are like, no, don't do that. That's not safe. That's a horrible idea. You're going to live in what? A tent? Are you kidding me? I'm like, I got this. And so I came back, and I couch surfed the rest of the summer. I was homeless for the rest of the summer. I mean, homeless meaning
you mean couch surfing? You were couch surfing?
I couch surfed, but one night the person I was staying with wasn't home, and I kind of had to sleep in a doorway.
Right.
It was just ridiculous.
Been there.
And so, like a lot of us would lick our wounds and say, okay, well, that adventure thing is not for me. And I was just like, where can I go next? where am I going next? And so
Wow.
I would say, when you talk about gifts, one of my gifts is I'm a risk taker. I'm an explorer. I'm very, very curious. But that trip, like that was the catalyst for the rest of my life, because I've started 6 businesses now. I've started nonprofits. I've done different things like that. When I see a challenge, I'm like, okay, well, how can we solve this? Let's go here.
So thanks to what Sri Lankan guy's name?
Lasantha Dahanaike. He loves to say his name. Lasantha Dahanaike. Dahanaike. I can just
Dude,
hear him spelling it. And
Lasantha.
we're still buddies. I talked to him
Wow.
recently. He talked to me because I had my hips replaced. He said, I got to get it done. And I'm like, it's going to change your life. Don't be afraid of it.
Let's jump to that. That's another similarity you and I have. Pain. Okay, I know you don't like saying pain. Discomfort. Serious discomfort that affects your personality, that affects, therefore, how you relate to other people. You had both your hips replaced. You have that. You talk about, while I've listened to it on your podcast. You were interviewed by Jason, and you talk about that courageously. And but you and I have that similarity. I was back pain for 10 years, longer. It started like 12 years and really hit after 10, 9, lasted 9 years. And I finally got back surgery. And the next day I was walking, and I took a 45-minute walk, which for about 10 years, I couldn't walk more than 10 minutes without my legs falling asleep in pain. So I'd walk for 10 minutes, they'd fall asleep, numbing, and then I'd have to like kind of crouch down and crouch down, bend it, then walk another 5-10 minutes, bend down. I couldn't stand up washing dishes because I would be sweating in pain. So I could wash for 10 minutes, and then I'd have to, and much like you got surgery after your 2 kids, right? You had 2 kids. You had to wait for COVID to end so you can do it. And I finally got the surgery when my second daughter was coming, because I was like, I can't leave my wife with a 2-year-old son and then have a baby, and that's just too much to handle. And I need to be able to really support. So I need to do what I've been not doing, and that's going to lead to my question, which is, and before I get to the question, which is just, I took that walk the day after surgery, and I started crying because the question came up, and I was walking for 45 minutes, which I hadn't done for 10 years with no pain. And I started crying because the question came up to me. It's like, what kind of person would go through that much pain for that long? Why? So that's my question to you, is what were you avoiding? What were you avoiding by not doing the surgery? What were you avoiding by, like, you talk about that family in Denmark that you've known for many years, and
Yes.
you talk about they reflected back to you like, dude, what's wrong with you? The way you walk. I can't tell you how many times they're like, what? Like literally for years, people are like, and I was walking like Quasimodo. I mean, I was walking crouched over like Quasimodo. I was literally, and I was like, what are you talking? Like, it's okay.
Jeez, wow.
For a long time.
Yeah. I can't
And I was
imagine
crying.
that. I can't imagine, because you're
Well,
young.
you did it, but you've had a similar experience.
Yes, I would say mine is different than yours in
Okay.
that, number one, I didn't know how bad it had gotten, right? The change is so glacial. And I remember after when my second daughter was born, I took a walk, and every step was painful for about a mile, and then things warmed up, and it was
That's
okay
when it
for.
started, right? That's how it
That's
started.
when it started. Yes, it was like I had known that I have problems with my hips for years, decades.
Yeah.
There were just things that I couldn't do, never could do. I learned that it wasn't athletic injury that caused my hip degradation. It was biological. They just were never formed properly or correctly. So I could never cross my legs like most kids can sit and cross their legs. And then I had some hip flexor pain, and I thought it was just my psoas. I thought it was muscles, but it was actually the hip joint itself that kind of created some muscle weakness.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it just got a little bit worse and a little bit worse. So I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And I have this, I'm an optimist, like sometimes to my detriment. And I was thinking, if I can put this off for 5 years, certainly technology is going to be in a place where they're just going to inject stem cells and
Uh-huh.
it's going to fix the joint. And I'm not going to have to go through this invasive process where they're going to put this spike into my femur, this metal
I see.
spike, and that's only going to last 30 years because I'm certainly going to live to be 120.
Right.
And so I'm going to have to do this twice. So I have this overly optimistic view of what now I do, of what I can do and where the world is going. And so I thought, oh, I can put this off. And my stepdad would, he would just grin and bear it. And I was like, this is discomfort. I won't even use the word pain.
So wait. So which is it? Why did you put it off? Because he would grin that you're
No.
replicating his grinning and bearing it, or because you thought technology would catch up and you just wanted to
It's
wait for that?
both. It's both. I can deal with this. It
Is it
doesn't
really
hurt that
both? Is
bad.
it really both, or
I think so.
is it really that you really grin and bear it because that's the example you were set, and that's also like how, as masculine energy, you deal with things, and that you use technology as an excuse why not to do it? It's a belief versus fact. It's something that you like to talk about. Is one a belief and another a fact? I don't know. I thought a lot about it because I didn't. I was like repressing it and I just bit my tongue. Something I learned from my mom, super strong. She's incredibly strong, which is like and I know where she got it from. And you just grit your teeth and you just keep going. You just keep going.
you know, I have this when it comes to being uncomfortable. I often go to this level of suffering is nothing, is nothing. How can I whine about this? And I could think about one time I was on this train, or on this train for 30 hours or something like that, and I was by myself. I didn't have anybody to talk to. Nobody spoke my language. This is years and years ago, and I was like uh, uncomfortable or kind of feeling sorry for myself. And then I started to think about World War II, and I thought about some of the train rides there, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me for 1 second
Right.
to think about your silly discomfort and your loneliness and all of that?" So I can go there really, really quickly, and I can think about people who have true Admiral Stockdale or John McCain and the Hanoi Hilton. I think about these guys. I'm like, that's pain. Do what you got to do.
Okay. Well, hold on a sec. Let's talk about it for a sec. That's a great tool for managing with pain. You're always going to find somebody who has more pain than you.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is your statement that, because the questionnaire is like one of your mottos. What are one of your mottos? And one of your mottos is comparison is the thief of joy. So in that sense, you're like denying comparison because it's going to screw you up. And yet on the flip side of the coin, you're using comparison so that you can live with discomfort.
Yes.
Endure.
Well,
Resilience.
I try. Yeah, I'm busted.
No, but like, let's talk about that. Because I think we're
yeah.
using, what are the formulas we use in our lives to help us experience the life we want to have?
Yes. Yeah. So comparison is the thief of joy. Is you have more than I have, and as a result, I don't feel as good about my life. But in the case that I'm talking about here, I'm comparing myself with somebody who has gone through some miserable circumstances, and it's actually returning me to gratitude. Well, I'm reframing that walk with my daughter, that 1 mile where every step was painful or uncomfortable, to I'm grateful for this pain because I am walking. And I know there are people who are not walking. So I can reframe it as a gratitude opportunity. And what really kind of pushed me over the edge was I was listening to one of my mentors who I've only met 4 or 5 times, a guy by the name of Ray Kelly. He works with another one of my mentors. And Ray was speaking and he was talking about our personal values. Now, my personal values are family, health, happiness, relationships, and integrity, kind of in that order. So family is number 1, but health is number 2. And he was talking about values. And that's what he does, is he helps leaders understand what their values are and lead with values and use our values to make decisions. Values-based decision making is what he would talk about. And Ray was talking and he says, sometimes our values compete against each other, but really they should be working as instruments in an orchestra. And he said, and it just dawned on me, family is number one, health is number two. If I don't take care of number two, number one suffers. So it was at that moment where I was like, okay, I'm getting the surgery. In that moment, I knew it. And it was like, yes, I was putting it off for my family or because I can deal with this. But if I don't take care of it, I'm irritable, I lack energy, I'm not able to participate as a partner, all of these things like you experienced. I have to do this. And it was the best decision I've made in years.
I think there's something more, and I want to ask it from this angle. I don't know, but there definitely was for me. What did you learn about yourself right when the surgery was over? And you talk about you had an experience where you're like, holy moly, I'm not gonna have to experience that again. And I don't know if you cried or not, but it was definitely, you mentioned about it being like a really emotional moment for you. This understanding, acceptance, like, oh my, what did you learn about where you'd been through and why you were in it for so long? What did you learn from that moment on afterwards, other than gratitude?
Well, I learned that I can endure a great deal, which is great. It's a nice thing to have.
But you know that. I think you know that from, you've had 6 businesses, you've exited on one. Anyone who's an entrepreneur who's got to build a business to exit a value goes through some, I'm not saying, I mean, we compare, everyone has worse, but like, you've gone through many nights of sleepless nights wondering how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to grow the company, how you're going to be responsible to your employees. I mean, one of the things you're proud of yourself for that you mentioned on the forum is doing the things you've done while still treating people well and sticking to your integrity, which is one of your values. That's no easy feat. You got to be resilient to do that. Right? So I think you know that you could deal with pain.
Yeah. There was that moment,
Discomfort.
I think you're alluding to, that I had taken a shower and I normally shave in the shower, right? And this day I shaved in the mirror. And I don't spend a lot of time looking at myself in the mirror. Like I'm in the bathroom, I'm in and out, and while you're shaving in the mirror, you have an opportunity to look at yourself. And I just looked at that guy and I started to cry, as you said. And I said to myself, it's over. And probably the greatest lesson is, I hope to be on this earth for 64 more years. I really, truly want to live to 120. So I'm 56. And why do I want to be here? I enjoy living. I enjoy life. I love my family. And I believe that I can help humanity in a small way. I'm not going to invent, some sort of magnificent carbon capture technology that's going to address global warming, but I can make the world a better place through my children, through my businesses, through the mentoring, through the other children who I influence. And
how do you know? How do you know that you're really helping people? Like, how do you really know that? Like, how does your soul know that? Not intellectually. Like, what's a moment that anchors you in the belief and the faith that you are helping people and therefore you should continue living till you're 120?
I know because I've seen people I've worked with change and grow and blossom. And I'll go back to the very first person I ever led. And I use the term loosely, led. I was working as a professional for a Fortune 500 company right out of college. And the pay was fine. Everything was fine about the job. I was learning things and meeting new people, but I realized this isn't enough for me. And so I wanted to volunteer. Volunteering has always been really important to me ever since I got out of school. And I wanted to be a big brother, but being a big brother takes a long time. It takes maybe a year, and I had some ideas for what I might do after that. And so I didn't want to make a commitment to a young person and then maybe move. And I actually ended up moving to Germany when I was 25. So that was a good choice on my part. But when I was in that job, I volunteered to tutor people at the Hennepin County Juvenile Detention Center. And I actually was able to tutor inmates, residents, whatever you want to call them. They were minors who were sentenced as adults, or the people I was working with were minors who were sentenced as adults, and they were kind of waiting for their 18th birthday, and then they would go to an adult facility. And the one person I worked with was Teddy, and he was a gangster. He was so tough. And my first day, he's kind of built like me, 6'1", 6'2", kind of long and lean, but super powerful. And he had an ability to go from 0 to 60 and have violence, solve a problem with violence immediately. I've seen him lose his temper, even recounting a story to me. He would just puff up. And Topaz, I'm telling you, like this guy was probably 180, 185. He would just puff up to be like 250, 200, just like this giant.
And he was your age? He was younger than you? He was the same age?
He's 17. I was 23, 24.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was like nobody I'd ever met before. I'd met some people who had been in gangs or grew up in tough circumstances, but nobody like Teddy. And we established a connection that I couldn't have predicted going in. After weeks, I'd go there every week, and we'd sit there for an hour and a half, and we'd talk about I would ask him, what do you want to learn about next week? And he'd tell me, and I'd go to the library and I'd research it, and I'd get documents and different things, and we would talk about that for an hour and a half. I think I was the first male in his life who truly cared about him and didn't want anything in return. Because he grew up in gangs, and afterwards he got sentenced, and he was already sentenced, but he was taken away to an adult facility. So we didn't see each other again for a number of years. And you're not supposed to do this, I gave him my address, and we wrote each other. And he would write these letters to me, beautiful letters, and tell me about what's going on, and telling me, I hope you're doing well, and I'd write him back. His mom wrote me. So his mom was just like, thank you for what you're doing with Teddy. I really appreciate it. He's my boy. And, I don't think you'll understand what a mother's love is for her son. Yeah. Just like, this is wild. So long story short, after he gets out, serves 8 years or something like that, he invites me to Kansas City. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Kansas City. I'm going to go see Teddy.
He's like 23 now. He's the age that you
He's
met.
a man.
Yeah.
He's I think he's 24, 25 years old. And Kansas City is very segregated. I didn't know that going in. So I'm driving in, I've got this car. I get out of my car to walk to his apartment, and like the whole neighborhood just stops and looks at me like, what is this guy doing here? And I walk up to the door, and I knock on the door, and Teddy comes to the door. He's wearing a tank top, and he's just this chiseled 240-pound Hulk. He grabs me and hugs me, and this embrace. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Like I didn't know what I meant to him. And his mom is there, and she's like, oh, Don, how are you? So you asked the question, how do I know I can make a difference? I think I touched that. I love Teddy, and he loved me. We've not seen each other. He reoffended. He went back to prison. We've not seen each other since that day. But I know that we connected in a truly significant way, where there was love on his part and love on my part. And I just wondered, from that day forward, I wondered what would have happened had I gotten him at 9 and not at 17.
Hmm.
What would have, how could I have changed his life? Could he have made different decisions? He was looking for family. He was looking for brotherhood. That's what the gang provided him. They provided him with love. But what could I have done? You know, I was like, he transformed. I was like, Teddy, what did you do in there? He's like, hey, you know, it was boring. We just lifted weights. And he told me he military pressed like 400 pounds or something. Like I couldn't even fathom that. But, well, this guy could have done so much more with his life. And since then, I've been a big brother for 25 years. I've started different organizations where we are doing these things, where we're changing people's lives, where we're helping them understand what the world has to offer. We're building capabilities and abilities, and we're providing them with access. I just know that that's possible. And I want to do that for as long as I can.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So what does this mean with Shaquille Nelson?
Shaquille Nelson is my little brother. We started the Inner City Ducks together. It's a football and basketball team in North Minneapolis. North Minneapolis is one of the more economically challenged areas in Minneapolis. And we started with 13 boys. And first of all, he asked me, will I start this organization with him? And I said, yes, I was flattered. And it's called the Inner City Ducks, and this is duck wings. Those are the duck wings. So, you know, when you see somebody doing that, they're part of the Ducks. But we started this with, I think, maybe $5,000. I think maybe I gave him $5,000 for equipment and uniforms and things like that. And one of my buddies ran a story on us for one of the networks here. He came to one of our practices. This guy I had known through basketball. So he's in athletics and the sports reporter. And he did a story for us on Friday. It aired Saturday. We had 13 kids on Friday. By Monday, we had like 50 kids. And,
Wow.
you know, we were just off to the races. And a year later or something like that, we had 120 kids mostly from the neighborhood, from North Minneapolis, but some coming from different parts of the city. And, you know, we're just trying to teach them leadership lessons and what the world has to offer. And I actually developed a model for how to develop young children. And it's 4 A's. And
it's 4 A's? There's 4 A's.
Yeah, there's 4 A's in the model. And I realized that so much of the conversation, particularly after George Floyd's death, was access. So giving young, talented people access to opportunities. And I mean, access works. That's a component of it, but it's not the full story. And so working with the kids that I was working with and Shaquille is working with now. So I'm not involved in the organization, but he's still running it. What we need to do, and I wish somebody had done this with me, you know,
Right.
kind of looking back to
Sure.
bring this story back to the beginning. The first thing that we need to do is help people understand or give them awareness for what the world has to offer. That I had no clue about. And with the Inner City Ducks, we've done that. We've taken them to Kansas City, to Madison, Wisconsin, to Chicago, to South Dakota, to play in football tournaments. For many of them, it's the first time out of state, first time staying in a hotel, maybe even the first time eating in a restaurant.
Wow.
So before we give people access, we need to help them understand, give them the awareness for what the world has to offer. And then we need to build in capabilities and abilities. So that's the second A, awareness, abilities. Okay, this is what you do in a restaurant. This is how you eat in a restaurant. This is how you say please and thank you. May I have? You know, all of the things that you're teaching your children, right? Well, these kids, they may not have that. And so if you're going to give them access, they need to have some ideas for what they can do. And then they have to have some capabilities. And then access is the third thing. You know, once they've built up their abilities and they're aware of what the world has to offer, you can open up your network and start making introductions and things of that nature.
And what's the fourth A?
Advice.
Advice
Advice
along the
all
way.
along, all along,
Uh-huh.
all along. Okay, so yes, you can be a pro athlete, but pro athletes, their careers are over at 26. Then what? So what I would tell Shaquille, Shaquille was that guy. When I was talking about Teddy, what would have happened had I met Teddy when he was 9? Shaquille I met when he was 9, and I was his big brother. And
Right. So just to play it back, you met Shaquille when you were 9. When he was 9,
when he was 9,
you big brothered him, and then when he became a young man, you and him, off of his inspiration, his idea, started Little Ducks,
Inner City Ducks.
Inner
Yes,
City Ducks,
that's exactly right, and that
right?
was probably 7 years ago.
So
Something
when
like
he was what? So you met him at 9, and when he was
he just turned 31, so
31. So when
mid
he,
20s,
but when did he get the idea for Little? Yeah, for
mid 20s, his mid
mid 20s.
20s.
So
Yeah.
you're there like 15 years, 20 years, 20 years with him, and then that seed and that relationship blossom into impacting 15 kids, 50 kids, and more.
Oh yeah, 120 kids now. I mean,
Right?
can you believe that? It's amazing. And what he told me is, I want to do what you did for me, but I
Yeah.
want it to be scalable. And I was
Right.
like, really? And even today, he'll say, I wouldn't be here without you. And that may or may not be true. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't really care. I don't need
Yeah.
to take credit for it. I really don't
Let's go here.
need
Let's
any
go
credit.
here. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Now I do want you to be, I don't want you to be humble. I want you to, and I don't want it extensive. I want what you feel at the moment now is true. What do you think, what do you think is the gift that life designed into you or helped shape? Because it's an interaction. It's not just like it worked on you and it happened. It's like an engage between the things that happened to you, the environments you're in, the people you met, with your own being, with your own kind of personality, with your own intention, intuition, engagement, but that connects with you shaping into some type of gift. What do
I
you think
don't
that
think
gift
there's,
is?
I can't say there's one gift. I think there are several.
Great.
I really do. And I don't think that I'm extraordinary at anything, but I'm pretty good at a number and I have a number of gifts. So I tell my kids I'm pretty smart, but I'm more clever than smart. Well, what's the difference? And to me, clever is you have a bit of knowledge, but you're willing to use that knowledge in ways in which people didn't think about it before. I'm like, oh, well, give me an example of that. And I'll be like, well, I can see a resource, I can see a material, I can see something like that, and I can see a way that it can be used that, um, you know, no one previously had thought about. And so I'll give you one example. This is back from my work career at a software company, and we did employee engagement surveys. And one of our biggest challenges was that we didn't have benchmarking data. Everybody said, your competitors have benchmarking data. So when you do our survey, we can compare ourselves against other companies. Well, we went out and we hired a company to get benchmarking data for us. And that was clever, okay? But what we did with that data, in addition to using it as our benchmarking data, is like we ran our whole marketing and sales operation around this benchmarking data, and in ways that nobody had done. In fact, the acquiring company that bought us said, you put out a stat of the week every week, like a drumbeat. And the president of the organization that bought us said, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing this? Every time she got an email from us. And so it was just this clever use. Okay, we have something of value over here, but how can we repurpose it? That's what I mean by being clever. I'm a risk taker. I'm willing to take risks. Like I said, I moved to Germany when I was 25, one-way ticket over there. Did the Alaska trip. The Alaska trip, most people afterwards would have said, never take a risk like that again. I was like, oh, I can't wait to take my next risk. And then, I'm curious. I love to explore. And I think that's maybe the gift that is being most prominently used right now. But I love
Clever, curious, and risk taker. Those are the gifts that you feel, some of them that you have.
one last one is I'm able to establish trust pretty quickly,
Uh-huh.
and and I think that's going to be even more important going into the future. As I think about AI, we're going to wonder who we can trust and how we trust people,
Sure.
and I've been able to do that really quickly, and a lot of that is acting with integrity and saying things that I truly believe I will back up, and then I eventually back them up. So I would say those as I have examined and took the walk this morning, those are the gifts that I have.
Do you have a superpower? And what I mean by that is, what situation I could drop you into where you'd be like, I got that. Like, I got it. Like for me, charades. If you're like, Topaz, I'm going to drop you into charades where your life depends on it. And, you got to deliver. That's probably the only thing I'd be like, I fucking got that. Like, I'm on charade, motherfucker. I call it the Muhammad Ali. I say, like, everyone has a Muhammad Ali. It's where you're so fucking good at it that you could be arrogant because you just know you can do it.
Mm.
So for me, it's charades. It's pretty much the only thing. And then maybe one other thing. But do you have a superpower that you feel like? What would be the situation I have to drop you into where you're like, I got that shit, Topaz. Like I can do that better than anyone else in the room. Not out of arrogance, but because I just know I can do it.
Well, the thing that comes to mind is love. And I was at this retreat in October, and it was professionals from all around the country, and it was somebody from Europe as well. And it was 16 of us, and we were having conversations. And I said, I'm constantly surrounded by love. I don't remember saying that. So it came out months later when we had a reunion. Oh, I was thinking back to when Don said he's constantly surrounded by love, or there's so much love around me. I don't remember saying that. But when that person said that, I was like, yeah, that's true. There's so much love. And so this is, I don't know how I got here. I really don't know how I got here. But I'll just share a few things. When I was 18, leaving for college, I don't remember ever having hugged my stepfather. Things were different back then, so I had this car, and I packed my car up, and I was driving to my college. My parents didn't drop me off. Like the notion that my parents would drop me off, like that never crossed my mind, never crossed their mind. So I packed up my car, and the car's ready. It's idling in the driveway, and my stepdad was there. My mom was gone. I had said goodbye to her already, and I just grabbed my stepdad and I hugged him. And I can still feel that hug right now, Topaz. I'm telling you, I can feel it. He's a strong man. I'm bigger than he is. And I grabbed him and I was like, wow, this feels so good.
Oh my God.
And then I
I
played basketball that year. There was a guy named G on the team, a guy from Chicago. If we saw each other, we would, instantly would pick up from where we left off the last time I saw him. It's probably been 25 years. But G hugged everybody. He hugged men, he hugged women. He didn't care. He hugged everybody. I was like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to spread joy. I want to be the kind of person who doesn't care if he hugs a buddy of his or a girl he just met or whatever. And so I had this amazing hug with my stepdad, the first time that I can remember hugging him. Maybe when I was really little I did or something, or got hurt or something. But now I was a man and I hugged him. And then I meet this guy just a few weeks later and he's hugging everybody. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be like this guy.
Yeah.
And then just kind of fast forward to another thing. There's a guy by the name of Harvey Mackay who's written a number of best-selling books um, how to swim with the sharks without getting eaten alive and dig your well before it's thirsty, or you're thirsty. And I read something in his book one time, and I just got this idea. It must have been about gratitude, but I know I got the idea from Harvey. I know I got the idea from Harvey, and it was about gratitude. And I was like, my favorite day of the year is Thanksgiving, and so I was like, that year, I went to the office. I went to the gym, got to the office by 8 o'clock in the morning, and I called every single one of my employees, and I thanked them for choosing to work at my company. And then I called all of our customers and I thanked them for choosing to work with us. And then our partners and our, um, uh, supporters and friends. And then I called my family, and they were like, and I said, well, thank you for being my sister. I love you very much. Thank you for being my mom. I love you very much. And it was so weird because, because they're like, are you okay? Are you dying? and I did this for maybe 10 or 15 years. The
Wow, every
last year
Thanksgiving?
every
Every
Thanksgiving, yeah,
Thanksgiving?
every Thanksgiving.
But how great did you feel after doing that?
Oh, amazing, amazing.
So
It
much
was the
energy, right?
best day, best every year. It's the best
Yeah.
day. And
Yeah.
you know what it's like. I was single. Wednesday night before Thanksgiving is the night to go out. So if I was out till 3 in the morning seeing music and having drinks or whatever, I'm at the gym at 6. I'm in the office by 8, and I'm making those calls. People would answer. People would answer my call. Like this one guy, a client of ours, he's like, well, Don, what are you doing? It's Thanksgiving. I'm on a hike. And I was like, hey, Steve, I just wanted to let you know I'm grateful for your business. I'm grateful that I've had an opportunity to meet with you. Thank you. And he's like, oh. People would tell me, one guy, he said, I have one voicemail saved on my phone, and it's from you. It's your Thanksgiving message. People would, and I would call, mostly leave voicemails, right? People would leave on Wednesday and come back on Monday, and they would be like, that's the first thing that they're going to hear when they come back
Right.
to the office. And so Harvey McKay's from Minneapolis. I told one of my friends about this routine, and she knew Harvey. And Harvey called me, and he
Wow.
said, hey, I heard that, I knew that you're doing this, and I just wanted to say great job and blah, blah, blah. And then I started calling him every year on Thanksgiving. and he's a big golfer, and he'd say, hey, Don, I'm on the golf course. I'm not supposed to be taking your call. Let me take this shot, and then I'll talk to you. So, but that was the greatest thing. And so there's the stepdad, my hug with my stepdad. There's meeting G. There's this idea that this is what I'm going to do on Thanksgiving. And now, regardless of how uncomfortable it is, if I love you, I'm telling you. If we have lunch together, if we end a phone call, it's I love you. And
Wow.
I'll finish with one thing. There's a good buddy of mine who's on the Thanksgiving call list. And at the end of it, I say, I love you. And he's all uncomfortable. He's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he's like, I love you too. And I used to tell this when I would speak to audience. And one woman said, I said, I make him uncomfortable every year. And one woman said, and he answers your call every year. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So even though he's uncomfortable, he wants to hear it.
Right.
So that's my superpower, I guess. I mean, that's the superpower,
your superpower,
that I want.
Right. What I hear, what I'm learning in this exchange right here, what's coming through to me, not that it's true, but what's coming through to me is gratitude. Your superpower is gratitude, expressing gratitude. And what I'm learning too is maybe gratitude is an expression and a reflection of love. Like maybe that's, you're saying love, but what I hear is gratitude. I hear that like your even your statement like good day or great day, those are the only two choices.
Yes.
That's another one. Like that's kind of saying like I'm going to be either happy with the gratitude that I have today, or I'm going to be super excited with the gratitude I have today. But gratitude is not that's there, period. And when I hear that you're calling, and I can feel it when you talk. I mean, I can. That's what I'm picking up on. I can feel it. It means touch me.
Well, thank you.
Um, yeah, and I
I
think
can't believe my life, honestly, from growing up in that mining community. And one of the challenges I feel, I'm trying to address it with my kids, but I feel like many people have high expectations and their experience is far below what their expectations are. I was actually reversed. When I was a kid, I had
right,
no expectations and pretty much a happy childhood. And we didn't have much, but I got to go in the woods.
interesting.
Somebody had a boat, we could fish and hunt, and we could do fun things.
I'm hearing there's a first sentiment of well, there's no possibility. I mean, then all of a sudden, oh, this is possible. Whoa, well, that's possible. Great. Then the second sentiment is like impermanence. Well, this is just here for now because it's gonna go. This is here for now, so I might as well enjoy it. So it's like yours. Like, oh, this is amazing, great, wow, but it's not gonna last for even better because it's I don't know how long it lasts. I'm gonna really enjoy it, and that's just like a training, a distillation of being grateful for what you have in the moment, and then
I think that's
sharing it,
accurate. I think that's accurate.
and then sharing it. Wow. Okay, I want to get to the family. I want to get to parenting because I know that I think that might be a third commonality between us. Um, we don't have to go to there, but it's just something that I'm curious about.
Mhm.
Um, it's just like how we're really into. We could talk about parenting, but like before I get there, it's like I am curious because your children are. I assume they're pretty young. I think, right? I mean,
6 and 9.
6 and 9. So,
Yeah.
so by all accounts, like you kind of started having kids at a similar age as me. I started when my first son was I was 44. 43, 42, 43, 43. Um, so what did you carry or like how did you carry your the family models you grew up in into the current model that you are with your partner, with your wife? Like how is it that you constructed that love and that housed the two souls that you welcome now?
I would say there's very little carryover from my upbringing. The only the only similarity is, my mom and stepdad definitely put us first, and we're going to work tirelessly. But they had to work tirelessly just to put food on the table and just to pay rent,
Yeah.
or not rent, but they had a mortgage. But just to make ends meet, we're not in that situation. So we're, you know,
Well, but it's also like every story, every kind of life could be either an example or a warning. So you can also learn about what not to do, and that's also something to be grateful for, right? It's like, oh, okay, I see that route doesn't
yes,
work, and this
yeah,
one does, and not in an antagonistic way and ungrateful. It's like, oh, thank you for that lesson. Just like you're grateful that you had the pain because you've learned a lot of that from the discomfort. You've had the discomfort.
mm.
I know you don't like using the word pain. So in that sense, how is it that you knew your partner was the one for you? And how did you how did you both because you're big into you talk about purpose being a blend of gifts, values, what is it, gifts, values, and passions, purpose. So you're kind of because I see that you see things and somewhat systematically. Okay, so what is the system by which you built your family, which is your number one priority, which is your number one value?
A bit by happenstance, to be
Uh-huh.
honest with you.
Well, isn't that amazing? Like
Yeah, yes. And I'll tell you, what? I'm with Michelle. We've been together for this is our 16th year together. And I never wanted to get married. We're not married now. Um, she told me early on when we were dating, she said, I'm not spending, 5 years with you or 7 years of my life, getting to know you and dating and living together. She said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, okay, we're going to have a great time together. And we did. And then I realized I was really in love with her. And I thought to myself, this woman is going to be an incredible mother. And I either need to let her be a mother or choose to be choose to be a father.
Hmm.
Meaning let her be a
Let her
mother as
go.
in
Let her go. Or you choose to be, because you didn't want to be a father.
I didn't want to be a father.
Uh-huh.
And I was
Wow.
like, this woman is such a good woman. I mean, how am I ever going to get anyone better?
Okay, I just want to pause, because the reason I said wow for someone who just said he didn't want to be a father is you've sent me, because after our conversation on your podcast, you sent me an email because we talked about fatherhood, and you gave
Yes.
me some incredible rituals that you do with your
Yes.
children.
Yes.
So you're clearly a committed father and a very aware one. So for you, that you came from that arc of like, I didn't want to be a father. I just want to set that up. So please continue. But like, wow.
Yes. I'm amazed, just as amazed as you are, to be honest with you. So we're, she's she's in her mid 30s now, 36. And at this point, I'm like, well, and we either need to break up so she can find somebody so she can be the mother she was meant to be, or I need to make a decision and say, okay, let's do this. And going in, I just thought, well, I'll be the provider and I'll be a kind of ancillary partner in this. And so we decided, okay, well, we'll have children. And we got pregnant. In fact, I didn't know we were pregnant. She had an ectopic pregnancy and almost lost her life. This is 2015. She had an ectopic pregnancy in 2015, and the doctor said, well, is she pregnant? And I said, I don't know. And she came back 2 minutes later and she said, she's pregnant. And we have to have surgery. And so she lost one of her fallopian tubes. And then her gynecologist is like, well, it may or may not happen for you, given your age, and now you only have one fallopian tube. It may not happen. We're thinking, oh, well, this is a lost opportunity. By May, so 4 months later, she's pregnant again. And I think in my case, I've heard people say a mother becomes a mother when she becomes pregnant, and a father becomes a father when the child is born. I was not convinced I was going to be a father until the baby was born. I just thought for some reason that it wasn't going to happen for me. And I see that baby come, and by far the greatest moment of my life until my second child came. And then I was like, oh, my family is complete. But yeah, I've just changed very fundamentally. Going in, I thought my job was going to be providing for the family and then helping out here and there where I can. I thought I would travel 1 week a month and just kind of sit on the sidelines. And that is not the way that it is shaken out. I wouldn't want it any other way than it is. I'm very, very involved. I love it. It's the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life.
What do you think was the hidden gift in that surprise of you being a father? What do you think you saw in becoming a father, or you see now that that you that the universe wanted you to experience, if you will?
Well, the gift that I have received is um, my life no longer matters. And
Wait. When you were a kid, you grew up in a
oh,
community where you felt
pardon me.
like your life didn't matter even then.
Yeah, but I didn't know any better. And
Aha. Wow.
what I'll say is that I've built this life. I built this life for me, and this life was about me, and um, enjoying it, experiencing pleasure and passion. But I've graduated to more of a greater purpose, and like there's I don't know, it might sound trite to say that there's a legacy piece in here,
Yeah.
but I see a greater humanity. And that's what's transformed me. So I would say between having a family and doing this 12 Geniuses project, I have seen the potential of humanity. And it's really, really exciting.
Wow.
The
Hmm.
I can just imagine so many positive scenarios for the future of humanity, despite all of the risks and the landmines that we have to avoid. Um, and we talk about it all the time with my kids is how are we going to make a difference in this world? And I whisper in their ears. I don't think that I'm a father as much as I'm a coach. I feel like I'm just whispering in my children's ears and saying, um, you're a difference maker and you're going to make the world a better place. And you're already doing it. With my younger daughter, her superpower is love. You get hugged by her and you'll remember it. You'll remember it like my stepdad's hug. It will leave an impression. I've even had people call me and say, I'm thinking about Greta's hug right now. So, I'm hopefully coaching them so they can make an impact in this world. And that's been the gift for me is, you talked about, well, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but maybe taking
We can.
psychedelics.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I've never done it, but oftentimes I've heard people say, I see the world in a different way and I see the connections between us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's magical. And I see that now. And that's my vision for the future of humanity is where we can be connected. We can have differences, but instead of, and one thing that has changed over the last several years of my life is I don't engage in conversations to prove how smart I am and to win. I engage in conversations to learn.
Yeah.
Now, there may be people who can win and learn during their conversations. That's not me. I'm not smart enough. And so, I just want to learn. And that's transformative. So sorry for such a rambling.
No. Okay. So I'm gonna reflect back a possible storyline. Like if I were gonna direct a life story about you, because it's interesting. You say like you didn't want to be a father, but you did want to be a big brother,
Right.
and you could argue, you could in storytelling, you could say, well, father's just a bigger version of a big brother. It's where the stakes are higher, where responsibility is greater, and hopefully the payoff is more impactful. And maybe the universe saw how grateful you were, and humble you were in the work that you were doing, and that you were a good big brother. And maybe it knew that the universe needed a father like you to raise the stakes, not just for your daughters, but for the work that you're doing going forward. That's something that's like coming up as a paradigm now. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's a narrative, a possible narrative story we could give it.
Well, being a big brother definitely prepared me. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned about relationships from being a big brother, and I applied them at work, and then I've applied them as a father. Probably my biggest hesitation was, there's insecurity. Uh, I'm an older dad. You're kind of an older dad. You got started 3 years, before I did. But what if I don't make it? And there was a bit of that insecurity, kind of going back to my dad's situation, like,
Sure.
oh, what would happen?
Yeah.
And then also the financial insecurity when I we sold my company on the day my first daughter was born.
Wow.
So I wasn't wealthy. I wasn't destitute or broke, but I certainly wasn't wealthy until that day. And so there was always like, oh, I wouldn't want to bring up a child in the circumstances that I grew up in. Even though I know circumstances really don't dictate a great life. It's just a small part of our overall happiness. I know that, but I still, it still is like, I don't want to do that for myself or for my children, for my family. So that was one of the reasons that I would at least tell myself why I shouldn't be a dad.
We lost our first baby, my wife and I, and um, I remember the first evening that she told me she was pregnant. It was a Sunday night at midnight, and I was working, preparing for the week for my startup, and she came in to tell me that she was pregnant. And I remember looking at her and being in shock. And my reaction, all I could say was like, I got work to do then. Like I not like
Oh, wow.
like stop bothering me. I got work to do. It's more like holy shit. I got 9 months. I gotta get work to do because I gotta prepare for what's coming and that financial responsibility, and that weight and not to mention forget about once your baby is born, the emotional responsibility, like the emotional vulnerability that one has because your heart is literally now no longer in your body, but it's like in your child's heart running around. And, anything little happens to your kid emotionally, it breaks your heart, and yet you can't really control everything. So there's a responsibility of financial, but also just the emotional vulnerability that I'm always just um, shocked by. I'm shocked by. I'm shocked how the world works. How do we have wars? How do we have poverty? How do we have these situations when people's children are running around being subjugated to things that are just like how do they operate and how do we allow that to happen? Yeah. um
How did you lose your child?
it was we were in New Zealand and it just was early, just I think I mean for me I took it as I think what I know is that I know a lot of people who lose who have miscarriages and we don't talk about it, or at least you don't hear about it a lot, but it happens a lot. I mean, I
A
know a
lot,
lot of
yes.
people, and I think that, especially if you're a first parent making an effort and then you lose a first miscarriage, it's very challenging. But I think if you understand that, maybe it's part of the process of the body preparing itself. Maybe it's also part of the constellation within the family dynamic of the two couple to test uh, the rigor. Who knows? Who knows?
Did you mourn that?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. We mourn that. We actually have in our home now, there's a center courtyard. The home is raised around it. There's a center kind of courtyard, and there's 5 trees in the courtyard. 4 are alive and one is dead. And my wife is like, "Well, why don't we have because we planted these 4 or 5 trees. One died and 4 are alive." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. That tree is the fifth kid. This is the third kid. It's the fifth family member." Just to remind us that like what's dead is not necessarily gone. What's not living is not necessarily not living, it's present. um Much like your father, my father, who are in their 80s, when they pass, they're just transformed. It's not like they'll be gone. They'll just transform and their memory will echo and their presence will echo in our memory of them and in our, you know what I mean? They're
I
like,
do.
I keep that there because I think it's part of being grateful for what we have now.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Well, I certainly do think that, and my work right now is to prepare these children to be the best versions of themselves, to take risks, to accept failure, to forgive themselves and forgive others. I think that I'm passing on the best parts of me. My children will never know me. They will never know the whole me because there's flaws. I did stupid things. I made mistakes that I don't want them to know about. There are thoughts in my head, there are angry thoughts in my head sometimes that I don't act on. I don't really need them to know that they're there. and I just, much like I've chosen the best parts of my parents to incorporate in my life and the best parts of mentors and people I've never met, not, I see this, the way that person acts or treats somebody. I don't know what they're doing at home, but I'm going to take that and make it part of my life. That's what I want to do for my daughters, is just give them the best of me, the best examples that I can have and provide. And that's enough.
One thing I learned since our conversation on your podcast was because we talked about the kids and raising them, was that like one great example I hope to pass my kids is that I hope that my wife and I will pass to our children, because it's a boy and a girl, is just simply like how much we respect our partner as a model. Like, and I hope that they find, so I always want, like, am I treating my wife in the way that I hope my children will be treated by their partner?
Yes.
And every time I drop from that, which I do, because I'm,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like
You're
human
human.
and,
You're human.
impatient, many things, many faults. But that's like a reminder to me, like I can teach them things. I can obviously by example, but one of the greatest examples is what kind of person I'm being in a relationship, so that they can learn to be that too in the sense, but more importantly, what kind of partners they'll accept in their lives.
Yes. And demonstrating that in front of them. So, for example, my girl's mom is beautiful. She's a knockout. And I tell her, "Isn't your mommy beautiful?" And I'll say, "Inside and out." And you know what? And because I want them to know, like, I'm still in love with her. I'm in love with her. I don't just love her. I'm in love with her. And I find her so beautiful and so smart and so interesting and so hardworking. So that recognition in front of the children, and I want them to do that too. I want them to accept that for themselves. And like, that's the standard. That's the bar that their partners need to provide them. Anything less is not good enough. And of course, I'm imperfect too. but I also want them to hold me accountable when I'm not who I should be.
Let me ask you, how do you plan to teach your daughters resilience? Because you talk about resilience, and I want to teach my kids resilience, but how are you? And you sent me that beautiful email about the ritual day, which is between each of your kids' birthday, there's a day right in the middle, and you guys go do a ritual together where they buy them a present together, they share.
Yeah.
And in addition, you have not only they have their birthday, but they have their like 11 small birthdays. So on the same day of the month for each kid, you go do something special one-on-one with them. You're doing the book collection so that when they leave for college, they're going to get a bunch of books that they can read, right? You're giving them a letter every month that's just going to go in that box of books and or whatnot, so they leave. I mean, you are putting time in to parent, to being a father, which I commend you. So first, a question is, I want to do that too, but goddamn, life is moving fast and I got things to do. Like, how do you carve out the time to really commit to that? So that's question one. Two is, how are you teaching them resilience?
Well, question one is, when I'm teaching my kids, my job. So I used to say my number one job was to keep you safe. That was my number one job. And then to teach you, and then to love you unconditionally, in that order. Oh, you're supposed to love first? No. You got to keep them safe. And now it's shifted. Now I love and I teach. Kind of, they're in school, so safety is a lot of their responsibility now, and their teacher's responsibility, and things like that. So, keep them safe, keep them warm. That's when they were little. Now they can cross the street by themselves. That's kind of on them. So my job is shifted. But I got to be a father late, and I was just like, I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to give them an experience that's quite unique. So this idea of little birthdays, Quinn was born on the 8th, Greta was born on the 15th. Quinn has a big birthday on her birthday. And then every other month after that, she has a little birthday where we go get a donut or take a walk together, have an experience that we can share together to bring us closer. And even playing the "and," for example, your game, which has been fantastic. Just wonderful. Like I played it yesterday with my 6-year-old. She doesn't get it, but it's an opportunity for us to talk and for her to describe, how does it make me feel when you smile? Oh my gosh, that's like an amazing thing, like it's just so wonderful. And so I just decided I'm going to give them a unique childhood. And so I started to think about all of these different things that we can do. Share Day, which we just had. Share Day is April 12th. And it's the point at which between Quinn's birthday and Greta's birthday, halfway. And they got a record player and a record that they can share. So they can play their own music, which is just magical. And kind of by having Share Day and things like this, they have no possessions. Everything is ours. And they never fight over things. So all of this is kind of with intention, and it's a bit of an experiment. So I had a lot of time to think about ways in which I might make their childhood special. And I think back to our earlier part of the conversation, I feel that I want to be loved by my mom, and I want my dad to be proud of me. And part of the reason why I tell people that I love them, if I love them, is I never want them, if I die or if they die, I never want them to wonder, was I loved by Don? And so I tell my kids, our nighttime ritual is, I love you like crazy. I'm proud to be your daddy, and I'm going to dream about you tonight. So that's what I tell them when I leave their room. And they give me a hard time about it because I say it every night, but I don't care. And sometimes I'll just whisper in their ears and I say, I love you. And I tell you that I love you because I never want you to doubt it. And one time my youngest daughter, Greta, a year or so ago, she said, Daddy, I never knew that you loved me as much as you do. And I was like, what? And she said, well, I know Mommy loves me. And I'm like, yeah. And she says, but you just love me differently. And I'm like, yeah. But it was just shocking to me. And so even though I tell her every night, and there might be some doubt in there. You want me to move on to resilience? I don't even know what the first question was.
Or before that, just how do you carve out the time? I mean, you write a letter every month. You take a day to spend a little time. I mean, it's nice to ritualize it, because like we could just have a random time here and there, but to institutionalize it, elevates it. Making a ritual elevates it. It points out this is a practice. We're being a little more conscientious rather than like, oh, let's just go get a donut. No. This is your small mini birthday.
Yeah.
We do it every 12. So
it's family first, and
that's your number one priority. That's your number one value.
It's the number one priority. And even I started a new company, as you know, in October, and my oldest daughter was like, well, why did you do that? I thought family was first. I thought that was always going to be important. I said, it's always going to be my number one priority. And I said, if it's not, you need to tell me that.
Wow.
But I said, I have some special gifts that I feel like I can share with the world to make the world a better place. And I also need to model that behavior. You need to see that when I'm getting up in the morning. When I'm getting up in the morning and showering, there's a reason for it. It's not to be clean. It's so I can be presentable and go out there. And, I tell the girls, so this kind of gets to the resilience question. I think the most important thing that I can do to prepare them to be resilient is to help them with their mindset. And one of the things, I read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. It's a marvelous book about adolescent, teen anxiety. And as I was reading that, I was thinking to myself, the generation of young people, they can't escape the world's problems. That's one of the reasons why there's this anxiety. And so I'm like, how am I going to address this as a father? And my kids were really young, so they didn't have cell phones. They don't have access to the world's problems all the time. And I was like, okay, There needs to be a way in which I can teach them that the world has always had problems, the world will always have
Yeah.
problems, and the world has problems today.
Yeah.
It's just really helping them with their
Wh-
mindset.
What I hear from that is that you're teaching them that problems is not abnormal. You're
Correct.
saying problems is there. The question is not if you have a problem or not. The question is, which problem do you want to help solve?
That's exactly right.
Right. And it's okay with problems. Like we're not here to be perfect. That's what I hear in that. I hear in that. And I think that's a form of resilience, right? It's like, I can handle that there's not perfection. And I'm okay with that because I'm going to find my way to find fulfillment by contributing in some way, shape, or form to a problem.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the world has many, 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 many problems. Way better problems today than 100 years ago or 200 years
Wow,
ago.
what a great way to say it. Way
And,
better problems.
and that's so we were laying in bed a couple months ago. I'm not sure if I shared this story with you, but we were laying in bed and it was maybe 20 below zero in Minneapolis. So that's cold. It's not, you don't want to be out there. I'll just say that. We were watching a National Geographic animal video or something. All four of us are in bed and we hadn't done that in a while. And I just paused the video and I said, you know what I'm grateful for, girls? What, Daddy? What? I said, I'm grateful for grocery stores. I'm grateful for heat. I'm grateful for electricity. I said, because out there, we used to have to go out there on days like this and cut firewood and maybe hunt or prepare a meal or move our camp. Like we used to have to do that. I said, I'm grateful for all of these things, this magic that we have. And I want them to understand how good we have it. Yes, we have problems way better than the problems of 100 or 200 years ago. And the problems of tomorrow will be better than the problems that we have today. And so I want them to have that mindset. I think that's where resilience is the first piece. And then, we've talked about this before too, is self-defense. So I truly believe that I haven't done my job as a father if they can't defend themselves and understand that, yes, the world's a great place. There's a lot of love in it, but there's some evil, there's some danger, and you need to be prepared for that. So those are a couple of things, and I think they will not emerge out of this home without a sense of purpose and how they can make the world a better place. So I would say those are three things that.
Well, this is something we ask on the end when we do these productions, when we have like a couple who have children. I was just asked this too. But it's when you're 120 and you're on your deathbed, what do you want what do you want your two daughters to tell you?
Well, I would want them to be proud of me, but I would, I guess I would want them to say thank you for teaching me how to be kind.
Whew. Fuck, that was an arrow in the heart. Jesus. I want to thank you for teaching me how to be kind.
I hope they're very kind now, and I hope I've had some influence over that. And I hope they continue to be kind. I believe the currency of the future is kindness and love.
Mm.
Um, we get so wrapped up in money, but the future can be abundance for all. And abundance is what is abundance? Abundance is food and shelter, it's clothing. But what we'll really need is kindness and compassion and empathy and help. That's in short supply. And so I want I want my children to be rich in those areas. I could care less about money and material things. Material things mean nothing to me. Nothing. My car is a 2009 Honda Accord with 99,600 miles on it. It says nothing about me. I don't want it to say anything about me. My legacy will be if my children are kind and loving to those closest to them and those they have yet to meet.
What have you learned from this conversation, if anything? Have you learned anything from this conversation? If so, what?
Two things. One is it's given me an opportunity to reflect on my life, which I don't do very often. And it just made me grateful for the people who have made this life possible. Topaz, just recently, I have developed such great reverence for the 100 billion people who have come before us. Amazing reverence to put us here now with all that surrounds us in this magical capability of connecting with another human being in Uruguay, thousands and thousands of miles apart, countries apart, continents apart. So I've developed that reverence for all of those people. But for my family, I've greater gratitude for my family, my parents, and it's taught me to be a little bit more compassionate, particularly to my dad, who's struggling at this moment. And then the second thing is, I feel I found a friend. I really do.
Well, that happened on our podcast too, don't you think?
Yeah,
on
deeper,
your podcast.
Deeper, no, a greater curiosity to get to know you.
Yeah.
And yes, and yeah, I would say, yeah, I have a greater interest in getting to know you better, and then I just I truly want to make the world a better place.
Yeah,
and I can do it. I'm a piece of sand, but it'll move a little bit of water. There'll be ripple effects, and hopefully some others will be inspired to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I think that's inspiring. Because you've seen the ripple effect. You've seen the domino. You've seen I think the universe has called you up to like increase the stakes with your children. You know, not just like in terms of how you raise them, but in terms of how you model being in the world with them. And there's an interesting, like, in kind of doing my research on you, I kind of had this arc, which is from being like competitive and speed was important, like getting shit done. I mean, and doing, to not competitive but abundant.
Right.
And not from speed to slow. And not from doing but to being. I think, part of that was like having children coupled with the pain, the discomfort and the surgery and the forcing of slowing down. And I don't know, that's like an arc. One thing I've learned from this conversation that I didn't quite like put together was how gratitude is a reflection of love, or like something in there like that. I find really, like, I almost feel like gratitude is an act that accesses love or reflects love, or like pulls at the string of love so that you can hear it. But like gratitude is an act that enables you to practice love, or something there. Well, man, thank you. Thanks for jumping on for so long and having a conversation.
It's an honor. It's truly an honor. Thank you.
It is. Thank you, Don. So we'll be in touch, yeah? Guts is a Skin Deep media production. The show is produced by Sundus Hassan Noli, video by Dane Montezan, with editorial support from Ants Cabral and executive produced by me, Topaz Adizes. Special thanks to all the guests who showed guts, without whom there will be no getting under the skin. Interested in joining our community and following this journey? Visit guts.podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.com for in-depth conversation card games to create the space for connection, intimacy, and deeper conversation. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep having the guts to get under the skin.